IIm BMS 80, which is the entrance exam for BMS program at IIm Kozhikode, is going to be conducted on 22nd of June 2025. We are coming up with a crash course wherein we will be covering the whole syllabus that is going to be asked in the exam. This crash course is going to have 30 sessions and each session will be delivered to you on this YouTube channel itself daily at 9 p.m. After this crash course is done, we will be providing you with the workshops that will definitely help you train for the exam. As of now, we know that the exam is going to have only QA section and VA section. There is no LR section asked in the exam. But the paper pattern of the exam is not known. As soon as we come to know about the paper pattern, we will definitely deliver 3 to 5 mock tests to you guys as well. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel and inform your friends that this course has started and they can benefit from it. And now let us start learning.
Today we are going to take a look at some reading comprehension strategy and some reading comprehension related tricks and tips. So let's get started. Now, first of all, what basically is reading comprehension? You are given a passage to go through and you have to answer some questions on the basis of that particular passage. What are some things that you can do in order to make your reading comprehension better? Active reading. Active reading basically means you are engaging with the text by asking questions, typically the WH questions and how. The WH questions meaning who, what, when, where, and how. So basically this means that whenever you're reading a passage, you're trying to get to the depth of it and you're trying to understand exactly what is being discussed, exactly how things are happening in the passage, and exactly where something that has been mentioned happened, so on and so forth. It means that you are trying to find answers to some very basic questions actively, and therefore active reading. Active reading also means recognizing certain things that you may not be aware of. For example, some particular vocab that has been used, some particular bit of information that that is new to you, or rather some particular phrases that are very odd for you. Why we have to notice these things? The reason is, if you are not able to understand something because of the vocab, at least you can try to build a contextual understanding. If you observe that something, some phrase or something is new to you, there could be a question on it. So this is what active reading entails: engaging with the text, trying to understand and process it by asking questions. Another important aspect of reading comprehension preparation is speed reading. Now, speed reading is of not particular importance with respect to CAT examination, because the passages are going to be long and they are going to be complicated, and the questions that are going to be there will require you to have detailed reading of the passage. A lot of times when we say speed reading, some people think that it is just skimming, or sometimes people think that it's just like, going through the passage without really understanding a lot of it. But speed reading here in this particular context is at least a reading speed of around 300 to 350 words per minute. And we require this reading speed because first, the passages are going to be long. So if we don't finish reading fast enough, then we will not have enough time to answer the questions or think about the questions. We may also fall short of time with respect to the entire paper. So we may not be able to attempt all of it. So that's again a very important aspect. Next, if we see why speed reading is important, is because you anyway will have to come back to the passage to confirm your answers or to verify whatever statements have been given. In this case, it is going to cost you quite a lot of time when you're solving one particular question. If you don't read fast enough, it will not be possible for you to be able to do this particular exercise of coming back and verifying, which could mean that you will be taking a hit on accuracy. Also, if your reading speed is good, you tend to retain longer because you are already done reading the passage. So you may be able to solve around 3 to 4 questions with more reference from your short-term memory, as opposed to if you're reading slowly, you may not be able to have that advantage. Okay, so there are several reasons why speed reading is required, but speed reading not in the context where we are just reading with an intention to finish the passage, but speed reading with an intention to finish the passage with good accuracy and with good understanding and good comprehension. That is what we are looking at. Okay, next, identifying key ideas. This is very important for us because there could be direct questions, first of all, and secondly, if you're reading a write-up and you're not able to understand what it is about, then actually the point of reading it has failed. Okay, so there's no point in reading it if you don't understand what it is about. Okay, so identifying key ideas given in a passage is very important because questions will be based on these. Okay, there will be direct questions on the major ideas or supporting ideas. There will be direct questions on important themes. So we cannot help knowing this. And if while reading you don't identify the key idea, it actually means that you haven't read at all. Okay. Retention. Now we simply cannot remember everything. 40 to 50% retention reading at this speed is amazing. Okay, if you read at this speed and retain around this much, it's amazing. Now, even for this, you're not expected to remember everything verbatim, right? We are not expected to remember everything verbatim. Instead, we are expected to remember key ideas as we discussed above, some important points that are made, important points, individual points that are made. And secondly, and thirdly, very important thing, that is locations. Locations of probable answers. The entire idea behind reading comprehension is to be able to locate answers to the questions that have been asked. This you can do only if you have thoroughly gone through the passage and you were able to somewhat predict which kind of questions could be asked at the end of the passage. So that means that we have to practice well enough to understand what kind of questions are asked, and we have to practice enough so that we are not basically reading the passage blindly, but we are just trying to engage with the text in a manner where we can predict questions, probable questions. Now you may predict 10 questions and you may get only 4 questions, but as long as you are even able to predict 3 out of the 4 questions that have actually been asked, you should consider yourself a master of the subject because you have understood the question pattern. Okay, also when you are able to predict, it is easier for you to go back to the location that you're looking for and basically get the accurate answer. So CAT is a game of accuracy as well as speed, and in reading comprehension, a combination of both will make your attempt a really great one. Critical understanding of the passage. Critical understanding of the passage, you can say, is the more in-depth way of reading a passage. Generally, we read what is given in front of us, but here we have to read between the lines. And because we have to read between the lines, we have to keep our eyes open for anything that just seems to mention something in the passing, or that is telling things in an indirect manner. So if something is indirect, then we have to try and understand exactly what is happening. These kind of sentences you'll mostly catch when you're reading the passage, and a lot of times we are tempted to just move on because there is a time pressure. So we are just tempted to move on, and instead of processing that particular phrase or that particular statement, we choose to simply keep reading. However, this can lead to hampered understanding or incomplete understanding of the passage. Hence, we have to make sure that we are taking care of all these things in order to excel at reading comprehension. We want a good understanding, we want engagement with the text, we need to work on our reading speeds, we need to identify the key ideas, we need to work on our retention. Retention is also important with respect to the fact that it helps you understand the passage better. So if you're retaining well from the very first paragraph and there is something of reference in the last paragraph, then if you're not reading well and if you're not retaining properly, then you will not be able to make that connection. It is just plain and simple as that. Now, how to improve reading speed is a very pertinent question that students tend to ask in the class for verbal ability. And I believe that there are some things that you can do, but none of it can be done without reading. So first of all, to improve reading speed, you have to read. You cannot magically improve your reading speed without reading. Okay, you can have dime a dozen strategies and you can have dime a dozen methods to improve your reading speed, but unless and until you implement them, you're not going to be able to read. You're not going to be able to read at the speed that you're looking for rather. Now, let's take a look at some reading speed strategies or methods that could help you become better at reading comprehension. First is in-head pronunciation. We all as kids learn to read by reading aloud. However, this habit maintains itself when we stop reading aloud but start reading silently. Now, what exactly happens here is when we look at a word, our brain is fast enough to understand the word and recognize the meaning of it. However, we insist on pronouncing the word in our heads. Now, this hampers the reading speed majorly. So what exactly we have to do here? We have to step in as soon as we have understood the meaning, and we don't have to give time to our brain to pronounce any word that it is coming across. So basically, once you take a look at this, just move on to this and try not to let your brain take time to pronounce it. Okay. Next, skimming. Skimming is important. Identify keywords when you are skimming. Keywords can be of different categories, topic-based, logical keywords, and then there could be keywords which demand special attention because they are giving you some additional bit of information regarding the point that you are currently reading. Okay. When we talk about topic-based keywords, this could be the keywords that are very important to the field that the passage is coming from. When we are talking about logical keywords, these are the keywords which determine the logic in which the statement is going or determine the direction of the statement rather. Okay, for example, if you say A, some phrase, but B, that means this was supposed to happen, but it did not happen. What happened instead? B. Okay. Then there could be although, yet, contrary to, however, right? Then there could be keywords which talk about additions. For example, furthermore, additionally, secondly, thirdly, these kind of words, because they tell you, they give you some additional bit of information in addition to whatever was already discussed. Okay. Furthermore happens to be one of those particular words. Moreover happens to be one of those particular words. Again, also happens to be one of those particular words. Another category of words could be the kind of words which show a cause and effect relationship. We have to note these kind of words because they are showing cause and effect relationship. That's the plain and simple reason why we have to make a note of these words. For example, so, hence, therefore. So basically, whenever you see this, it means something happened before and therefore the next bit is following. Okay. So again, similar. So we have to make sure that we are not losing out on something that is very evidently given in the passage, But just because we tend to overlook these kind of words, because for us they don't really hold a lot of meaning, the idea that the passage is trying to convey gets completely lost. And that is exactly what we will try very hard to not let happen. Okay. Next, cluster based reading is an approach which can only be taken care of once you are done with in-head pronunciation practice. So when you are able to avoid this, only then we can go for this. So this will be covered in some other session in detail, because it doesn't make sense to cover it now when we are not at all comfortable with the very first step of it. So this forms the very first step of cluster based reading, and eventually we will come to it. Familiarity with the topic. Familiarity with the topic will help you a lot with respect to your reading speed. You must have noticed that when there is something that you don't understand or that you are not aware of, you tend to read a little bit slower because you're trying to absorb the information, because you're not aware of the word and sentence structure that the words are arranged in, because you don't have any idea about the basics of that particular topic. Now, it means that since we are going to get passages from a variety of topics in CAT, it means that you will not be able to read as well as you want to if you're not familiar with different topics. Now we know where all passages come from, which all subjects are covered in CAT. So we have to make sure that we are basically having some kind of exposure to those subjects. Okay, if you are familiar with a variety of subjects, with a variety of topics which are typically included in CAT reading passages, then we should be able to handle any any passage coming from these topics very easily, because we'll have a general understanding of how language behaves for that particular topic, what kind of keywords could be used for that particular topic, and knowing meanings of some technical terms will always help you understand better. So that is an added advantage. And that's why exposing yourself to multitudinal topics, exposing yourself to variety of write-ups will be very important. Now we come to one very important question that students keep asking: whether we should read through or whether we should read the questions first. Okay, now read through what? Passage, obviously. So there are a lot of students who prefer reading the questions first, and then they try to skim the passage in order to get the answer. This approach typically covers identifying keywords and key phrases from the questions or the options. Okay, and then matching them with the content given in the passage. For the purpose of CAT, this approach is a big fat no, because in CAT, the passages are complicated enough for you to not even be able to understand when you're reading them for the first time, if you have not really practiced well. So there is no chance of actually getting this approach correctly for majority questions. Okay. However, once you have practiced enough and you have understood how to exactly skim effectively, you may use this particular approach for very limited scenarios, which I'll discuss in some time. But our approach for CAT verbal ability section has to be reading through the passage first. Okay, so it means that you're not going to take a look at the questions. You're not going to waste time doing anything about the questions, but you're just going to read the passages. Okay, right from line 1 till the end. You may try to read in a little bit hurried manner. If you wish, you can just simply read and mark the difficult bits for later. In case question comes from that bit, you can take a look at that bit again. But any case, you have to read through the passage once before you start attempting the questions. Looking at the questions first and then reading the passage is not going to cut it. You may pause the video and take a look here. These are some major focus areas of questions. So typically main idea, title for the passage forms a very important question. Specific detail type of questions, which are basically the details given in passage. Definitions, adjectives, and steps taken form a part of such questions. Drawing inferences and implications, basically these are critical reasoning based questions. These are a sub part of this. Vocab based questions, here your vocabulary could be tested. So as I said, there could be some difficult words or weird phrases in the passage, and you might be you might be a little bit confused about them while you're reading the passage. Such kind of phrases or words could become a question. Okay. Logical parallelism, they'll give you some logic and they'll ask you to spot similar logic in the passage, or they'll give you some logic from the passage and they'll ask you to spot similar logic in the options. Tone of the passage, this is a very important question. What kind of feel the passage gives you, what kind of tone the passage employs in order to get the information out to you or get the view out to you, that is very important. So we are going to take a look at it in detail. Identifying true or false statements as per the passage. So identifying true or false statement as per the passage, this is also one type of question where you have to basically verify the bit of information given in passage and the bit of information given in the question. So this is again a type of question. Author's agreement or disagreement, this is again somewhat related to critical reasoning based. So once you understood the consistency of view that the author has presented, you may test it against whatever scenario is given to you, and you may say whether the author will agree with the hypothetical scenario or not. Please note here, whatever view is going to be given to you for agreement or disagreement with respect to the author, whatever view is given to you, it is not going to be present in the passage itself. So this will be an external scenario that you have to consider. It could be related to the passage, but you'll not find the answer in the passage itself. Now let's go to the very first reading comprehension passage here. You may pause the video here and try to read the passage. Okay, so pause the video here, and once you're done reading this much, we'll move on to the next bit of the passage. This is the second page of the passage. You may pause the video here again and read. This is the third bit of the passage till here. You may pause the video here and read. Okay, now let's try to attempt the first question. I'll show you all the questions one by one, try to attempt them, and then I'm going to discuss the answers. So this is question number 1. This is question number 2. There are no options for question number 2. You have to find it from the passage itself. Question number 3, 4, and 5. Pause the video here, solve the questions, and I'm going back to the first question and demonstrating how to solve it. Once you're done solving, only then watch ahead. So let's take a look at question number 1. Arrange the following events in correct chronological sequence, starting with the earliest event as they occur in the story. Okay, as they occur in the story. So now in the story, there are some flashbacks also, but we have to start chronologically as per the story. Okay, so as per the story, first Sue and Jonesy start their studio. Okay, then Mr. Pneumonia visits Jonesy. Then doctor tells Jonesy that Sue is not going to live a lot. Doctor warns Sue that Jonesy is not going to live a lot. Junzi then tells Sue that there are only 5 leaves left, but Sue asks Junzi to not count the leaves. I hope you have understood. So basically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is the sequence. Now, how to solve this type of question? Here, before we start thinking of anything, we first have to go through all the statements that have been given to us. Okay, so first go through all the statements, recognize the first statement that you can put chronologically ahead of all the other statements and start from there. Okay, if you have read the passage accurately, you will be able to put everything down in a matter of minutes. In case you haven't, go back to the passage. Okay, they had met at table d'hôte of 8th Street Delmonicos. Okay, that was in May. Then pneumonia, unseen stranger pneumonia came. Mr. Pneumonia was present, and then doctor was visited by doctor was invited by Sue, and doctor tells her this. Okay, now Junzi says 6. They are falling faster. Okay, and then we go on and we talk about this. Okay, she talks about not not counting the leaves somewhere here in this bit, or maybe ahead. Okay, here, yeah, here is here's where Sue is saying. So that is the sequence of the story. In what month did Sue and Junzi start their studio? In May. How do we locate this answer? First of all, we can go by the keyword studio. Studio. They have given all this studio. That was in May. So basically, the studio was started in May. Okay. Question 3, true or false, or cannot be determined. Now, these kind of questions can be a little bit tricky. Cannot be determined has to be the answer when the statements that you are given have no solid proof in the story. If you only feel that something is right, but you can't really find out from the story, then it is most likely cannot be determined, and most likely just a you can say a subconscious opinion or subconscious assumption that you have made. So whenever you're solving these kind of questions, please go back to the passage as much as required. Okay, that should be true for any question. You should go back to the passage whenever you have even the slightest bit of confusion. Now let's take a look at the first set. Sue and Junzi are best friends. This cannot be determined because they are acting like best friends, but we don't know, as that particular thing has not been said. They're living together. That does not really mean that they're best friends. They could be roommates also. Okay, or they could be wives also to each other. So they could be anybody. So we don't know. Second, Junzi hates wine. Junzi does not hate wine. See. Here, she says you didn't get any more wine, Junzi. But here Sue is saying that maybe buy port wine for her sick child. So basically here she's calling her lovingly sick child, but she's offering to buy port wine, which means that probably Junzi enjoys wine. Otherwise, why would Sue actually propose it, right? So she is refusing because she probably thinks that she is not going to live, or Junzi probably is not feeling like wine at that point of time. We'll never know, but she definitely does not hate wine. So this is false. The doctor is pessimistic about Junzi's chances of survival. This is true. He says that we don't know exactly what will happen. It depends on her, right? Sue was from California and Junzi was from Maine. Let's go and take a look at it. One was from Maine, another from California. They have not mentioned which one, and they have also not used the word respectively, which typically we use if we want to provide some kind of information about different subjects mentioned in the sentence in a sequential manner. Here, that is not happening. So, one was from Maine, the other was from California, but we don't know for sure where who was from. All right. So, again, cannot be determined. Sue and Jonesy started their studio as they shared many common interests. This is true. Question 4. What is the central idea of this passage and what's the tone? The central idea of this passage, it is a story. It has not been completed. Okay. So what could be the central idea of the passage? The central idea of the passage is describing the you can say event of, like, a close person falling sick. Okay. And two people, a doctor and her friend, being worried about it, about the sick person. Okay. So the central idea of this passage could be what? Sickness. So if we take a look at it, how do we come to central idea? We first try to understand the gist or make a gist of what we have studied in our mind, and then we try to find out the answer. What is the tone of the passage? The tone is quite narrative. A narrative tone is basically the kind of tone which tells you a story. Okay. It is not describing anything. It is just taking you step by step or event by event through a particular story. So you can say it is narrative. Other tones we might not notice that clearly. There could be a tone of, you can say, dolor. There could be a tone of, slight bit of unease, because we don't know what's exactly going to happen and there is a sick person who may die, right? So overall the tone is rather blue. For this bit, we have not given you options here because we just want free thinking for this very first passage. But if we have if we have options, we will pick something that is showing some kind of sadness, some kind of impending doom, some kind of feeling of something not being right, or narrative tone. This is a style of writing, and the passage has been written in this particular style. Next, can you predict what happens next in the story? So this is a very personal and individual question. So please work on it yourself. This is the passage that will come next. So please pause your video here and read the entire passage till here, till the end. And there is a continuation of this passage on the next page. So you may have to take a look at that as well. So one request that I'll make here is that please, whenever you read any passage while you're practicing, please make it a habit that you are jotting down the hard words that you're coming across. Otherwise, you will never be able to improve your vocabulary. Okay, these are all cat level passages, so you have to be able to improve your vocabulary along with your reading comprehension skills. Okay, so whatever you could not understand, please go back to the previous passage, make a list of the words that you learned newly, and please do make the same effort for every single passage that you're going to solve, including the one in front of you now. You may pause the video here, read till the end of this particular slide, and once you're done, start the video. You'll be on the next slide. Slide number 2 for the same passage. Pause and read. These are the questions for that particular passage. Please solve these before you listen to the rest of the video. Okay, so I'm assuming that you have solved all the questions. Let's take a look at the questions one by one. First, why, according to many scientists, has the name coral reef been used inaccurately? The correct answer is because of low contribution of scleractinia to the composition of reef. Okay, let's go back to the passage and you'll find the answer here. The scleractinia themselves generally comprise no more than 10% of the biota of average reef community. Zooxanthellae can account for up to 90% of the reef mass along with foraminifera, annelid worms and assorted mollusks. Moreover, reefs can flourish only in shallow water. Okay, so therefore you can say that this was a kind of like a misnomer. Okay, again you will see that there has been use of that word misnomer as well. Let's find where. So it is a misnomer. Okay, basically we find the word misnomer here. Even the name given to reefs is something of a misnomer. The scleractinia themselves generally comprise no more than this. Okay, so it might not make a lot of sense to us maybe, but here they have completely mentioned it in a very precise manner. So let's mark that, there's no other reason. Okay, are they saying because of absence of corals on reef? They have not really made a comment on that. Scleractina themselves generally comprise no more than 10% of biota of the average reef community. Zooxanthellae 90%, and nothing has been said about corals per se. Okay, so again, there's nothing much here. They are talking about corals, but no, nothing has been said. Okay, corals is basically the term that is given for the zooxanthellae and scleractina combining. Okay, so most likely the term coral reefs persist because of brilliant varieties of coral shapes. Again, there is nothing to justify that, nothing to challenge that particular answer. So this is it. Next, the author gives example of Darwin in order to do what? Darwin is the keyword. Why the author is giving example of Darwin? Let's see. Here we find Charles Darwin. Partially correct. Creation of reform has more to do with rise of sea level that accompanied age of the end of ice age. Okay, and recent drillings at Inuviatak atoll have uncovered a large underlay of volcanic rocks, which suggests that Darwin's explanation may have been more valid after all. So basically what has happened, though is a word that we should be taking care of. So here there is a contradiction first, and then there is again favoring of that particular thing that was contradicted before. So Charles Darwin's theory was first contradicted, but later it held more water, and therefore they are going to accept it again. So why the author gives this example? To highlight the significance of Darwin and his theory? Not necessarily. Okay, maybe may not be, लेकिन not necessarily. देखते हैं आगे. Explain the relevance of Darwin's theory in today's academic world. This is the keyword, academic world. No, it is only with respect to the coral reefs and all that that particular theory has been mentioned. Explain how Darwin's theory helps explaining a puzzling situation. Okay, and highlight Darwin's contribution in solving an anomaly. Now, the correct answer should be what? So if we see this particular scenario, though theory postulated by Charles Darwin was considered at least partially correct, some scientists argued differently. However, again, Darwin's explanation is being considered more valid. So basically, Darwin's theory has helped in explaining a puzzling situation. Okay, academic word is wrong. Anomaly we might not really say that it was an anomaly. It was just a puzzling situation. An anomaly is something that is happening or occurring very rarely as an error, something that looks like an error. But this is not an error, but more like a phenomena. Okay, phenomena. A difference between an error and a phenomena is errors or anomalies are rarer and they basically are found by mistake, and phenomena are things that keep happening. We just don't know the explanation behind that. Okay, so here here answer 3 should be correct. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? The many mysterious symbiotic relationships in environment create a logical conundrum. Again, this is not the word that shows any kind of relevance to the passage for scientists studying it. Many mysterious symbiotic relations create logical conundrum for scientists studying it. First of all, it is not a logical conundrum. It's basically something like a thing that is yet to be understood. Next, Darwinian theory of evolution can be rejected by recent finding. In fact, this is wrong on the basis of facts given in the passage. Facts given in the passage say what? Darwinian theory of evolution is basically confirmed further. Next, here, see. Okay, no, for that we have another explanation also. Theory of evolution has got nothing to do with this particular bit. See, no theory of evolution is mentioned here, right? So though Charles Darwin is known for theory of evolution, it does not have any particular bearing on the current passage. Next, reefs can flourish only in shallow saline waters above 70 °F. This has already been given. Was it highly saline? Let's see. Yes. This has already been given as a fact. And when something is given as a fact, it cannot be called an inference. Why? Because inference means what? Something that you're deriving out of a particular piece of data. Okay. So repetition of data cannot be called inference. And inference is additional logical explanation or logical derivation out of given facts. So this is just a fact, not an inference. The creation of reef has some relation to the end of ice age. So they have found what? They have found that it has accompanied the end of ice age, but we don't know whether it is true or not. There is a debate regarding it, but given their observations, we could say that the creation of reef has some relation to the ice age. Okay, so the correct answer should be 4. Again, please take a look at this passage. Read. You can pause the video here. Read the passage, and when you restart the video, you will see the next slide. This is slide number 2 for the passage. Please solve these questions and play the video. Once you are done solving the questions, you will find me discussing the very first question, number 9. So I hope that you have solved all the questions, and we are coming to question number 9 now. Let's take a look at it. According to the passage, which of the following statement is not false? For a psychologist, studying moral choices in real situation is quite a simple task. Not false means what? It is true. Okay. So the best way of solving such questions is to reduce the negative into a simple statement. Okay. Whenever you get a statement having a negative, reduce it to simple statement. So reducing this not false, it means it is true. So we are looking for a statement out of the given options which is true. Okay. For a psychologist, studying moral choices in real situation is quite a simple task. No, in fact, they are saying it is quite a difficult task. Acts of morality under authority is easily undertaken by the perpetrator, even if such act would be shunned by the individual subject to. Let's see. This is the answer. Okay. So it is different. Behavior that is unthinkable in an individual who is acting of his own volition may be executed without hesitation when carried out under order. So here is the answer. So this is true, right? Acts of immorality under authority is easily undertaken. So 2 is true. To be sure, we are going to check the other options as well, because it is always better to be sure and have better accuracy. Okay, so let's take a look at the option 3rd. Obedience cannot be compelled by fear. As per the passage, obedience is colored by a cooperative mood to the degree that threat of force or punishment against the person is intimated, and obedience is compelled by fear. So that is wrong as per the passage. Persons who have given themselves to authority still retain an individual viewpoint. They are saying that that particular individual viewpoint is actually taken away from that person. Okay. So basically it is wrong with respect to what they have said. Okay. So the correct answer remains 2. Correct answer is 2. Just a second. Now, with respect to the passage, every study of the authority and disobedience is difficult. Why? Because it is hard to command individuals as a psychologist. No, that's not the answer. They're basically talking about, the fact that when a person is being studied, they know that they are in a laboratory, and just because they are being observed, then it is like, it changes the way they are going to interact. Okay. When we move to laboratory, the problem narrows. If an experimenter tells a subject to act with increasing severity against another person, under what conditions will the subject comply, and under what conditions they will disobey? What is the problem with laboratory? It is not something apart from life, but carries an extreme and very logical conclusion. Okay. Now, what does it have to do with obedience and all? They know that since there is laboratory, they are protected, or since they are being observed, they kind of tend to change their behavior. That is what the problem is, and this is why it is difficult to study. Okay, so this is wrong. It is irrational to come up with impartial judgment on these issues. In fact, we want impartial judgment. Okay, it requires subject of the study to bring the parents. Parents can be nothing has been really mentioned here. In the laboratories, the stakes are not as high as and the subject is not under a lot of duress. So if the subject is behaving or is in a situation that is similar to the one created in laboratory, but the subject is not in a laboratory, they are out there in the world, then they are obviously going to behave in a much different manner, because they'll be more stressed, and also whatever they are going to do, their actions will carry more weight. So they are going to be a little bit more worried about their actions. So for 10th, the answer is 4th. Which of the following can be inferred from the first paragraph? Now, whenever we see these kind of questions, which of the following can be inferred from the first paragraph? Whenever we see these kind of questions, we have to make sure that we are going to this paragraph. Okay. Now let's take a look. What's the paragraph? This one. Okay. What are they asking? Which can be inferred from the first paragraph. So no repetition of fact, something that you can actually derive. The person who with inner conviction loads may find performing these with ease. Behavior unthinkable for an individual is executed without hesitation under orders. An act carried out under command is psychologically different than the character's spontaneous action. Okay. So so let's see what the options are. Spontaneous immoral acts cannot be dissociated from immoral acts performed under command. They can be dissociated. Okay, they can be separated. So spontaneous immoral acts can be separated, and therefore this is wrong. Okay. They are saying they cannot be dissociated, but they can be dissociated. Okay. Immoral acts performed under command should not be equated to individuals' personal moral leanings. This could be one probable answer. Why? Because they are saying that something that is morally not right for you, but you do it under somebody else's command, you are going to feel a little bit freer about it. So this could be one probable answer, but we'll check the others too. Psychologists are deceptive and manipulative. Nowhere has this been mentioned. Soldiers can be accounted as common criminals. Again, no. In fact, soldiers have to kill, and under command, they are more it is more easy for them to carry out the commands to kill or to basically do whatever they are being commanded to do. Because as per the passage, it is a very different thing when you are doing something out of your own behavior, and when the moral responsibility basically lies with somebody else. Okay, so the correct answer should be 2. So that's all from me with respect to reading comprehension, guys. I hope you enjoyed this particular session. Please make sure that you are practicing hard enough for reading comprehension, because it forms around 40 to 45% of your CAT examination. So we are not going to take it lightly at all. Okay. I hope you have understood the explanation that I gave to you. There's not a lot to discuss for these kind of questions generally. So spotting them in the passage will be the best way, and deciphering the question in itself will be the best way. So today we have taken a look at method of elimination. So eliminate all the options before you mark your answer. It's very important to do this. A lot of people want to save time here and they end up with lower accuracy. Second most important thing that you have to do is vocabulary building along with your reading comprehension practice. So whatever you read, wherever you read it, when you come across a word that you don't know, please make a note of it, and please make sure that you are finding the meaning of it. Okay, unless and until we do that, we cannot hope to have good vocabulary, good enough to attempt a CAT examination. Okay, and next most important thing is being able to read in at a speed that is required for the examination. So please work on your reading speed as well. As I told you, the required speed is somewhere around 300 to 350 words. So please take a timer, read a predefined set of words, and try to figure out what exactly is your reading speed. This is words per minute. Okay. So make sure that you are actually working hard on this aspect as well, because it will help you in the long run, and especially in the examination, it is going to be very, very useful in helping you ensure accuracy. That's all from me, guys. See you in the next class. If you have any doubts or queries, please get in touch with us. These are the platforms you can contact us on. And till then, keep studying. See you in the next session. Bye-bye.